I moved to this small riverside town a few months ago. I hoped it would help me start fresh after my messy past. I thought teaching at the local elementary school would be a great change. As I unpacked boxes in my creaky little house, I imagined how peaceful this new life could be. At first, the quietness felt nice. The only sounds were from the river, flowing softly nearby. I enjoyed hearing children laughing outside, but something always felt off. The locals often avoided talking about the river when I asked questions. Their smiles turned into frowns. I started to wonder what they were hiding. One night, while grading papers under a dim desk lamp, I heard soft splashes outside. I tiptoed to the window. It was dark, but I thought I saw a shadow by the riverbank. My heart raced. Maybe it was a deer or a raccoon. But then I saw a figure slip into the shadows, leaving ripples in the water. That chill stuck with me. Weeks passed and things got stranger. Kids playing near the river vanished without a trace. I couldn't shake the thought of a dark presence lurking beneath the surface. One day, I called out to one of my students, Ethan. "Ethan, come here." But he never appeared. I stood there uneasy and confused. I gathered my courage during lunch and asked the other teachers if they knew what was going on. They exchanged worried glances. "Best not to think about it," one said, brushing aside my question. I didn't understand. How could they ignore it? I could feel the tension in the room like a shadow hanging over us. The next day, I decided to uncover the truth. After school, I walked toward the river. The townsfolk watched me, their faces tense and fearful. I heard snippets of their whispers about my curiosity. A part of me wanted to back off, but I pressed on. When I reached the riverbank, I crouched down, listening closely. The water splashed gently as if calling me. Suddenly, I thought I heard a giggle. I spun around, but nobody was there. My heart raced. Did I imagine it? I took another cautious step, drawn to the water's edge. That's when I felt a presence behind me. My skin crawled. "Hello?" I called out, my voice quaking. Silence answered me, and I turned back toward the river. My eyes widened as the water surged violently, and I staggered back. I gasped, my heart pounding wildly. I squinted at the river, trying to understand. Then I saw it, a hand rising from the depths, pale and thin. I wanted to scream, but nothing escaped my lips. A feeling of dread filled me. What had this town hidden? The hand disappeared, leaving ripples that faded into stillness. I stumbled back, the weight of fear crashing over me. I needed answers, but now I realized I might never know the truth. All I could do was run, hoping to escape the town that kept its secrets buried in the water. I didn't stop running until I reached my front door. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking. I forced myself inside, slamming the door behind me, as if that could lock out the darkness of the river and the secrets it held. My breath came in quick gasps. I leaned against the wall, trying to calm myself. I replayed the chilling sight of that hand in my mind. Who had it belonged to? Why was it there? I had to settle my thoughts, but the questions only grew louder, echoing in my head. I poured myself a glass of water, my hands still trembling. I needed to think clearly. I felt so lost, so confused. The townsfolk knew something. Surely someone had to have answers. I picked up my phone, contemplating whether to call one of the teachers I had spoken to. Maybe I could convince one of them to tell me what was really going on. Just as I was about to dial, a loud knock interrupted me. I jumped, almost dropping my phone. My heart raced as I approached the door. I peered through the peephole. It was one of my students, Ethan. He looked more terrified than I had ever seen him, his normally bright eyes wide with fear. I yanked the door open. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Miss Harper," he stammered, his voice shaking. "You have to come with me. They're back." "Who's back?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "The ones who were taken. They've come back to the river." Before I could process his words, I noticed something drifting in the air behind him. A faint glow, shimmering like fireflies, floated above the river. Ethan seemed to notice it too. His face paled, and he grabbed my arm. "We can't go near it, you have to listen." Panic surged within me again. I could feel the pull of the river, drawing me, tempting me to uncover those secrets. Yet, I also felt Ethan's fear radiating through his grip. I had seen something beneath those waters, and it was not something I should take lightly. As we stood there, the glow intensified, turning the river into a surreal tapestry of sparkling light. It felt like a beckoning call, yet I couldn't let it win. "Ethan, we need to talk to someone else. Someone who knows what's happening," I said, trying to sound brave. But Ethan shook his head, his eyes darting. "No one else can help. They're afraid. They can't stop it." Then, without warning, the glow began to form figures, shapes rising from the water. I gasped as they danced atop the surface, their voices like soft whispers calling out. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Ethan, we have to go now," I insisted, fear gripping my throat. Just then, one figure turned its gaze toward us. Its eyes glimmered with a haunting familiarity. I opened my mouth to scream, but the breath caught in my throat. That's when everything went dark. When I came to, the darkness was thick around me. My heart raced, and I blinked against the void, disoriented. I could hear the faint sound of water lapping against the shore, but it felt distant, like it was a part of a nightmare. "Ms. Harper." Ethan's voice broke through the shadows. I turned toward the sound, my mind racing. Had we been taken? I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy. The glow was gone, replaced by a dense silence. "Ethan," I managed, finally pushing myself off the ground. I was in the backyard, the grass wet against my skin. "Are you okay?" "I think so," he whispered. I fainted too." His voice trembled, rattled, but at least he was here. I looked around, trying to gather my thoughts. The river was near, but it was shrouded in darkness. The glow that had captivated me before was nowhere to be seen. "What happened?" I asked, my voice shaky. "I told you they were back." He pointed toward the water. "I saw them, Ms. Harper. The figures were rising, then everything went black." "That's not possible," I stammered, trying to convince myself. "They can't." But a faint whisper, like a soft breeze rustling through leaves, interrupted my thoughts. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. It was there again, that soft, beckoning call. "Can you hear that?" Ethan asked, fear in his eyes. "I don't know what it is," I admitted. I could feel it pulling me, like tendrils reaching for my mind. "We shouldn't go back. We need to get help." Ethan shook his head vigorously. "I can't ignore what I saw. They need us to listen. I can feel it." Against my better judgment, I found myself standing, drawn to the edge of the river. My feet moved almost on their own. "What do you mean they need us?" I questioned as the memories flooded back, the ghostly figures, the calling whispers, the chilling sense of familiarity. "They were taken," he said quietly, "and now they're back to tell us what happened." Suddenly, a shimmer caught my eye beneath the water's surface. Something pale crested just below the ripples. A face. I leaned closer, and a shiver cascaded down my spine. It looked like one of my students, Jennifer, who had disappeared last year. "Ethan!" I shouted, backing away. "It's her. We have to leave." But as I turned, the ground behind me seemed to shift, drawing me back toward the water. A figure emerged, half human, half shadow, clinging to the darkness. "Join us," it echoed, its voice like a distant memory. Panic surged in me. I grabbed Ethan's arm tightly. "Run!" I yelled. We sprinted away from the river, my heart thrumming, the whispering voices fading, but the fear never leaving. As we reached the tree line, I glanced back, and my breath caught. Standing in the moonlight, the figure turned its gaze towards me once more, its familiar eyes burning with a haunting longing. I was left with an answer, but it was worse than any question I had asked. I realized then, whatever had returned from the river wasn't just memories. It was a call to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The next morning felt suffocating. The sun shone bright, a stark contrast to the terror I had faced just hours before. I paced around my kitchen, poring over the last night's events. Ethan's words echoed in my mind. They were back. What did that even mean? I couldn't shake the image of Jennifer's face from my thoughts. It haunted me. I had to find out more. Maybe there were others who knew about what had happened. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts, landing on Laura, a former colleague who had been close when Jennifer went missing. "Hey, Laura," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" "Of course, what's this about?" she asked, concern threading through her voice. I hesitated, unsure of how to explain my fears. "It's about the disappearances from last year. I need to know what you know." "I'll meet you at the coffee shop in an hour," she replied, and I knew I had to hurry. The route to the cafe wound through familiar streets, but everything felt off. The trees whispered secrets as the wind pushed through their leaves. I wrung my hands together, the frantic energy bubbling inside me. What if more children were taken? What if Jennifer was only the beginning? As I stepped inside the coffee shop, the smell of brewed coffee filled the air, but even that couldn't wash away the heaviness in my chest. I found Laura seated at a table in the corner, her expression a mix of worry and curiosity. "What's going on?" she asked as I sat down. "Have you heard anything about the river, the children that vanished?" She nodded slowly, still cautious. "The town has been tight-lipped since it happened, but there were rumors." "Rumors?" My heart raced in anticipation. "Some say they gathered near the river on those full moon nights, that the water, it called to them." I felt my throat constrict. "Ethan said something similar. He felt it last night." Laura's eyes widened. "You went there. Did you see something?" My mind raced. I needed to tell her everything. I saw Jennifer's face. "What?" She leaned closer, disbelief shadowing her features. "That's not possible." I thought so too, but after last night, I don't know what to believe. We spent the next few minutes exchanging stories, but Laura's voice faded into a droning hum in my head. The truth was creeping in, but I couldn't grasp it fully. I felt watched. An icy chill danced down my spine, and I instinctively glanced around. Then it hit me, the reflection in the glass behind Laura. Someone was standing outside just beyond the cafe. A figure, obscured by shadows but unmistakable. It was the same one that had emerged from the river. My breath hitched, and I pointed frantically toward the door. "Laura, look." She turned, but when she looked back, the door had swung shut, leaving nothing but the quiet street in view. The figure was gone. "Did you see them?" I asked, confusion mixing with dread. "See who?" she replied, her brow furrowed in concern. I knew now that whatever was at the river was watching us. I had stepped deeper into something dark and dangerous. "I have to go back," I said, my voice tinged with both fear and determination. "Back to the river? Are you crazy?" But as the urgency swelled inside me, I realized there was no choice. The truth lay beneath the calm surface of that water, and somehow I had come too far to back down. "Someone is in danger," I declared, "and I have to find out who." As I walked away from the cafe, Laura's voice echoed in my mind. "Are you crazy?" I hadn't even replied. I knew how reckless this felt, but something deeper urged me forward. I pushed through the crowd, my heart racing with every step. I could still picture that figure lingering in the shadows as if waiting for me. The river was just a few miles outside of town. I took the same winding path, trying to shake off the creeping dread. Trees loomed overhead, their branches twisting like fingers trying to pull me back. But I couldn't turn around. I had to face the source of my fears. When I arrived at the river, the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon. The water sparkled, deceptively calm. It looked peaceful, but I knew better. I stepped closer, the grass squishing beneath my shoes. Memories flooded back, children laughing, splashing, the joy before silence. "Jennifer," I said out loud, willing her to answer. Silence stared back at me, cold and relentless. Then I remembered Ethan's words. The water called to me. I shivered. What if it was true? What if something about this place drew children in? I crouched by the edge, peering into the reflections, but the water contented itself with showing only my worried face. I took a deep breath, about to stand when a flicker of movement caught my eye. It was subtle, just at the periphery, but unmistakable. I tilted my head, and there it was again, a flash beneath the water, like something shifting in the depths. I straightened up, fear prickling at my skin. "Show yourself," I called out, my voice echoing across the surface. Nothing, just the sound of water lapping against the shore. A rustle made me turn. I spun around, half expecting to see that figure creeping closer, but it was just a deer, startled by my sudden presence. I shook my head. I was losing it. I couldn't let my imagination get the best of me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I took a step back, ready to leave when a glint by the water's edge caught my eye. I moved closer, heart pounding. It was a ribbon, pink, frayed at the edges. My stomach dropped. I recognized it from the news reports. It was Jennifer's. That was when I heard it. A soft whisper, almost like a voice carried by the breeze. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. The whispers grew louder, pulling me in. I had to know where they led. I glanced down at the river, the twilight deepening around me. Then I heard it more clearly. "Help us." My breath caught. Suddenly everything went dark. The sun slipped below the horizon, leaving shadows to creep across the water. I felt the pull of the river, a siren's call drawing me closer, even as panic clawed at my throat. I couldn't back away now. I was already too far in. Then came a scream, piercing the night. It sent chills racing through me. I realized then the danger was closer than I thought. I had to find who or what was demanding help. But as I looked deeper into the water, my vision blurred, and I heard it again. "Help us." And then everything changed. The air turned thick and heavy around me. I blinked, trying to clear my mind. My instincts still screamed danger, but something deeper held me there, tethered to the spot. The whispers rolled over me like a wave, and I could almost convince myself. I felt a hand brushing against my back, urging me forward. "Help us." It echoed again, unmistakably intertwined with my own thoughts. A chill crept through my bones. I had to know what or who was in the water. I dropped to my knees, my hands digging into the damp earth. I had to see. I had to understand this horror I could barely fathom. The water shimmered, and for a moment it felt alive, beckoning with an unnatural allure. Then I saw something. At first it resembled wicked tendrils weaving through the water. But as I focused, it morphed into recognizable shapes. A child's hand reaching up from the depths, fingers splayed wide as if grasping for air. Something twisted in my gut. I shuddered and jerked back, but the vision persisted, an illusion stitched between my reality and nightmares. "Jennifer!" I screamed, the name barely escaping my throat, cracking under the weight of my desperation. As soon as I yelled, a ripple spread across the water, distorting the reflection of the trees. The whisper transformed into a choir, haunting and lilting. "Help us! Help us!" Then a movement caught my eye downriver. I glanced away from the water, my heart pounding again. The figure I had seen before appeared. I struggled to make out details as the shadows clung to it like a cloak. But something about the way it stood still sent a wave of dread over me. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline coursing through me. No more hesitating. I was not the only person here. I was sure of it now. I called out, "Who are you?" No answer. The figure remained rooted, watching. I took a step forward and felt a heaviness settle in my chest. I wanted to scream again, but my voice failed me. The whispers grew louder, overwhelming my senses. Instinct took over. I turned and sprinted back down the riverbank. The path was slippery, and the darkness enveloped me. I could hear splashing now, like feet struggling in the water. Every instinct told me to keep moving, to run until my lungs burned. But the pull was strong. I couldn't be sure I'd left it behind. I could still hear that haunting chorus in my mind. "Help us." Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something flash, a figure darting through the trees. Panic surged. I wasn't alone anymore. I felt something chase me, an unseen presence. I glanced over my shoulder, but it was gone, just shadows swirling in the night. I tripped over a root, falling hard. Pain shot through my ankle, but I quickly pushed myself up. I didn't have time to dwell on it. I was still running when I stumbled into a clearing, gasping for breath. That was when I saw it. A small boat tethered at the shore. It looked out of place, half hidden behind foliage, and my heart leapt at the sight. If I could get to it, maybe. But before I could move, a voice rang out from the shadows behind me. "You shouldn't have come here." I froze, a shiver creeping down my spine. The chase was on, but I was trapped. Would I discover the truth hidden in this place, or would I become another whisper on the wind? I turned slowly, my heart racing. The voice had been deep and gravelly, reverberating in the stillness of the night. It sent shivers of fear coursing through me. I squinted into the shadows, trying to catch a glimpse of the speaker. A man stepped forward, partially illuminated by the faint light of the moon. His clothes were tattered, drenched and clinging to him as if he'd just emerged from the water. His hair hung in matted strands around his face, and his eyes glimmered with a fervor I couldn't define. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My instinct was to run, but something about the look in his eyes held me to the spot. "This river, it's cursed," he said, each word sharp but laden with a sorrow I could feel. "It takes them. The children. They can't escape." I took a step back, trying to take in what he was saying. "What do you know about it? What happened to them?" His gaze dropped to the ground. A flood of memories washed over him. We lost them, all of them, and it was too late when we realized. A lump formed in my throat. "Who's we?" He looked up sharply, panic flashing across his face. "You want to know too much. You shouldn't be here." That was when I heard it again, soft at first but growing stronger, the sound of splashing. Instinctively I glanced toward the water, mind racing. What if the whispers were right? What if there really was something in the depths, waiting? "Leave," he urged, his voice trembling now. "Get out before it's too late." My heart sank deeper into my chest. I looked back at him, the fear in his eyes kindling my own. "But what about the children?" His voice dropped to a near hush, full of desperation. "You won't save them. The river keeps its secrets, and it keeps its dead." Suddenly a figure erupted from the water. I barely caught a glimpse, long dark hair streaming in the moonlight, eyes wide with ghostly terror. My breath hitched. It was another child, or perhaps a reflection of those lost, rising from the depths with a silent wail. "Help us," the voice rang out, piercing the night. I stumbled backward, shock gripping me. The haunted figure hovered at the water's edge, arms reaching toward me, desperate and trembling. I locked eyes with it, frozen between pity and terror. The man reached out, pulling me against him. "Get away!" he shouted. "Now!" With his hand firmly gripping my arm, he yanked me backward. My feet moved before I could process what was happening. I tore my gaze away from the sight in the water, heart racing. As we stumbled back into the shadows, I could hear the whispers rise again, louder and more urgent. The man dragged me toward the tree line. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." Then his grip loosened, and I tore free, glancing back toward the river one last time. Instead of safety, the darkness seemed to swallow everything whole. But before I could escape into the woods, a sharp gasp stopped me in my tracks. Something was in the distance, lurking behind the trees, another presence. My heart plummeted. The night was alive once more. I turned to face the sound, heart pounding in my chest. Shadows twisted between the trees, shifting and flickering. A scream bubbled up within me, but I swallowed it down. I couldn't lose my mind now. "Who's there?" I called, trying to sound brave, though my voice quivered. Silence reigned briefly, then the rustling grew louder. Someone, or something, was definitely moving closer. The man, still a few steps behind me, grasped my arm again. His eyes darted around, and I could see the fear etched on his face. "We need to go. Now." I hesitated, torn. I wanted to know more. "What is out there?" He moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're too curious for your own good. Just trust me." With no time to argue, he pulled me along. We dashed toward the trees, branches whipping at our arms and faces. The eerie splashing from the river faded behind us, its ghastly whispers replaced by the sound of our feet crunching on the dry leaves and twigs. Then, just as I thought we were reaching safety, a figure stepped out from the dark. It was a girl no older than 12. Her clothes were soaked just like the man's, but her expression was blank. Empty. "Please," she said, a distant look in her eyes. "Help me." I stumbled to a halt again, captured by her gaze. "Are you okay? What happened to you?" But the man next to me hissed, "Don't! She's not real." I wanted to argue, to say she was a child that needed help, but as I moved closer, I noticed what he had seen. There was something not quite right. Her feet barely touched the ground. The water dripped from her fingertips, pooling at her feet. "I need to go home," the girl pleaded, her voice hauntingly vacant. I felt drawn to her, my instinct screaming that I should reach out. The man tightened his grip on my arm, yanking me back. "Get away from her." In that moment, a thunderclap of realization hit me. "She's one of the lost ones, isn't she?" The man's face clouded with regret. "We can't save them. They're trapped. If you touch her." His voice trailed off, but I understood the warning. My heart raced as the girl's face shifted, becoming gaunt and hollow, eyes clouding with despair. "Help us," she whispered again, and it echoed in the night. I resisted the urge to move forward. The memory of the child in the water flashed through my mind, the same desperate call for help. Suddenly my body shifted, my legs moved toward her despite the man's grip. "Don't!" he yelled, but I was already taking another step. Then everything went dark. I felt my surroundings shift as the world spun, and the cold wind brushed across my skin. There was no longer solid ground beneath my feet. I was falling. In a heartbeat, light returned, but it was different. A cold blue glow enveloped me. I blinked, disoriented and scared. The girl was there, standing a few feet away, her hand reaching out as if beckoning me. "Come play with us," she said, her voice soft but laced with a chilling promise. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized there were more figures emerging from the shadows, all reaching out with cries of longing. I was not just in a dream anymore. I was standing on the threshold between two worlds, and the river was calling. I had to escape. My mind raced as I glanced around, searching for a way out, but the answer eluded me. Shadows closed in, each child's echoing plea wrapping around me like a thick fog. The children surrounded me, their faces a mixture of hope and despair. I could see their hands reaching out, fingers curling in desperation. "Help us," they chorused, their voices blending into a haunting melody that echoed in my mind. I backed away, fear spiking as I realized just how trapped I was. The cold glow grew brighter, illuminating their faces. I searched for an escape. "Where are we?" I shouted, my voice shaky. "Where the river's whispers are strong." One of the boys responded, his face elongated and thin, eyes filled with an unsettling emptiness. I could barely make out the details of the land around us. Dark trees silhouetted against the luminous cold. I was far from home. Suddenly, I heard a rustling. I turned sharply, panic rising within me. At the edge of this eerie clearing stood the man, his face etched with resolve. "Get back!" he shouted, pushing against the unseen force. "You have to stay away from them." "Why?" I cried, my voice breaking. "They need help." He shook his head, desperation in his eyes. "No, they will take you with them. You can't help them. They want you to join them." The realization hit me like a slap. Join them? But they're children. They're lost. "They are lost," he urged, stepping forward. "But they are not what they seem. The river took them, and it hungers for more." I looked back at the children, their faces shifting between sorrow and anger. "You don't understand," I shouted at the man. "They want to go home like I do." "Then help me save you," he said firmly. "If you let them touch you, you'll be lost too." His words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The children's whispers grew in intensity, drowning out my thoughts. My heart raced. I could feel the pull towards them like a magnet, and I remembered the girl's haunting plea. Before I knew it, the girl lunged forward, her hand reaching for mine, fingers trembling with urgency. I darted backward, but I was trapped by the shadows. Dark tendrils snaked around me, holding me in place. "You don't belong here," I yelled, but my voice was swallowed by the mounting noise of their cries. Then it happened. The ground began to tremble beneath my feet. A thunderous roar echoed through the clearing. The river, somewhere nearby, was shifting, twisting to life. I could feel its pull, its dark waters rolling with a hunger that was palpable, ready to consume everything in its path. "Hold on to me," the man screamed, stretching his arms out toward me. I took a hesitant step backward, torn between safety and the call of the lost children. That's when I saw it. The swirling water in the distance, manifesting high above the bank like a curse. It was surging toward us, and the children were drawn into its current, their forms flickering between life and shadow. I was losing myself in this dream, a nightmare that felt all too real. "I won't let them take you," he shouted, lunging forward. The ground cracked, splintering beneath me. My heart raced as I realized what was happening. The river wanted me, and if I didn't act fast, it would have me too. "Grab my hand," he yelled. But even as I turned toward him, the chills sank deeper into my bones. I was caught between two worlds, and the pull of both made it hard to breathe. Then a figure stepped up behind the man. It was the girl, her eyes now swirling with dark waters. "Join us," she whispered, and I felt my resolve wavering as shadows coiled tighter. I had to choose, and time was running out. The ground continued to tremble as the river churned in the distance, pulling everything deep into its embrace. The figures surrounded me, their cries urging me to join them, to be part of a world that beckoned with both despair and familiarity. Desperation clawed at my throat, torn between the man calling for help and the ghostly children reaching for me. "Grab my hand," he shouted again, panic lacing his tone. His eyes were wide with a blend of urgency and fear, compelling me to trust him. I could feel the overwhelming tide of shadows threatening to overwhelm me, and instinct kicked in, driving me closer to him. "I'm coming." But before I could take another step, that girl surged forward, her fingers outstretched toward mine. Her expression softened into something tragic. "Please," she begged, echoing that same plea. "Help us." It was impossible to look away. Temptation curled around me, seducing my heart with thoughts of what lay beneath. Memories of laughter and innocence flooded my mind. Jennifer. All the children lost to the river, trapped in whatever cycle of sorrow it had cast them into. "Fight it," the man yelled, desperation breaking through the authority of his earlier command. The ground beneath us quaked, and the air grew thick with urgency. The swirling waters began to rise, and the whispers crescendoed into a haunting symphony echoing all around. My heart raced with fear and longing. My feet struggled to stay grounded, trapped between the treacherous whirlpool of shadows and the man's outstretched hand. "You have to choose," he urged, but the choice felt paralyzing. I felt the cold brush of the girl's fingers against my own, and time seemed to freeze. I glimpsed a semblance of warmth in her haunted eyes, a flicker of the innocence that had once been. But behind that innocence loomed the darkness of the river, a pulling force that sought not just me, but any soul it could claim. I could sense the desperation behind her eyes, but I could also see the cost. "No!" I screamed, flailing backward, tearing my eyes away from her grasp. The dark figures around me stiffened as the river rumbled, its wrath echoing like the voice of the depths demanding its due. With all my strength, I lunged for the man, my fingers clasping around his hand just as the shadows lunged in unison. The power tugged at me like a roiling undertow, but I felt his grip tighten. He pulled me forward, away from the encroaching storm. We stumbled back together, the children's cries fading against the rising roar of the river. Just as the tide surged, a wave crashed into the clearing, the water cresting with darkness, lashing against the edges of where we stood. I knew somehow, if I looked back, I'd see the children vanish into that abyss. "Now," he shouted, and with a fierce heave, he tugged me away from the darkness, pulling me into the trees on the edge of the strange realm I had stumbled into. I ran as if the breath of death drifted behind me, weaving through the shadows that recoiled as we moved deeper into the forest. We pushed beyond the trees, away from the heartbeat of the river, footfalls pounding against the damp earth. Finally, we broke through the tree line, the moonlight washing over us like cleansing rays. I gasped, lungs burning. The river lay in the distance, an ominous beauty beneath the full moon's glow. "What was that?" I panted, still catching my breath, glancing back toward the shadows. "Are the children gone?" He faltered, his gaze locked onto the horizon. "They'll always be there. The river will always call." He sighed, and a darkness settled in his expression, the burden of knowing too heavy to bear. "But you listened. You resisted." A knot twisted in my stomach. "But what if they need help? What if they're trapped?" He turned to me with a haunted look. "Those who are lost never truly leave, not until the river claims them entirely. You have to let it go. You have to take the stories with you. Make sure you remember." I was struck with the realization that while I had escaped, the questions remained. Behind me lay unanswered horrors, a dark grace of suffering intertwined with the river's flow. I still bore witness to the children's plight, those haunting presences lingering in the edge of my mind. We stood there in silence, an uneasy calm settling in the air. I moved away, trying to process the fragmentation of my experience, the edges of my past, the whispers of the children, the hints of a curse. I had no closure, no neat explanation, just an urgent desire to journey forward and remember. "Will we ever know the truth?" I asked, voicing my lingering dread, though I hardly expected an answer. He couldn't meet my gaze, and as he walked away I wondered if I would ever find the courage to speak of what I had seen, or simply remain haunted, my memories swirling like the river, beautiful and treacherous, forever drawing me into its depths. I moved to a different city after that, but sometimes I find myself staring into flowing water, wondering about the whispers and shadows that linger where those lost children wait, forever haunting.